Hi, everyone, and welcome to another powerful conversation with yet another beautiful, powerful woman. I'm joined today by Debs de Vries. So thank you for joining me, Debs. It's lovely to have you here. I've been really looking forward to this conversation since we first spoke. So very excited to have you here. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Oh, Claire, I feel excited too. There's such magic happening when women come together in this spirit of collaboration and interest. And I know it sounds a bit cliche, but using what we are to amplify what we want to give to the world. And what I give to the world, I mentor midlife women in a very particular way. It's multidimensional mentoring to help them through their big transition. So helping them to birth their next level gifts and talents, and also to use the passage of perimenopause as a rich, fertile learning ground for the next stage of life.
I mean, I think that's wonderful. And obviously, I mean, I'm of the age where I suspect I am in the perimenopause, but not, I've been lucky enough so far to not really have any symptoms. But I do think it is a phase where, a life stage where there are so many questions we have about who we are and what we're here for and everything. How did you get into helping people in this space?
I love that question because the fact is I had a dream, and I was shown very clearly in this dream that I'd reached a point in my life, I was 58 then, where I had 4 particular sets of gifts and talents that should be combined and given to midlife women. And that's my physical training in Hatha and Tantra, my emotional and psychological professional training, and my training as an alchemist and a spiritual teacher. I fell out of bed after this very clear dream. And I think it's the 5th dream I've had in my life, which is, I would say I'm not a monkey on a stick. This isn't me being told by some disparate deity, no, Deborah, you will go and do this. I believe it's simply the result of my subconscious, which is very active, showing me the growth point I've reached and who I need to be next. That's how I came to the work, Claire. Yeah.
So how do you go from having that dream into turning it into reality and making it something that you can offer people?
$100 million question. I didn't know at that moment. I remember falling out of bed. The dream was just to tell everybody it was really simple. There were 4 parcels in front of me in my vision, different colors. And I could see they were physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And I had the instruction, bring them together. So as I fell out of bed, I was like groping for the morning underwear. I'm like, And you know how often when you ask a question, it gets answered. There was a gestalt. There was a moment when, oh, right. Oh, my God, these pieces fit. And the astrology fits and the Tantra fits. And no wonder women are really challenged in this day and age to understand this passage and to ride it. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do? I'll run a retreat. And I went downstairs, and in the next hour, I went on Facebook and I put a little thing together. It was called the Menopause Magic Retreat. I didn't actually have anywhere to hold it. That came like 2 days later. But I got into action, is the truth. I knew it wasn't good to overthink it. And that's what happened. 3 women who I'd never met signed on. My first retreat was 3 people. I'm like, that's good enough. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of, first of all, then it put me in a situation where I had to think through what I wanted to teach. And so for me, as I'm sure you know and had similar experiences, you then have to really concretize what you've got so that it becomes partly the material you want to offer, but partly a conversation where you want to listen and find out what people actually think that they need, which is different. Because nobody wanted a woman who said, well, I'm a mystery school trained alchemist. I'll help you with your menopause. They'd be like, rolling their eyes going, we just want to sleep.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that can be the challenging, I suppose, from a marketing perspective, is you have a sense of what you're capable of delivering, and the change that you can offer people if they choose it. But how do you, it's finding that way to communicating in a way that makes sense for them at the place they are in at that point in time. And I think that's really challenging.
Hugely. I can't tell you the number of times I thought, oh, I wish I was just still teaching business.
Yeah.
You know, because I could say to a corporate, I'll come along and do some executive coaching for you, or I'll come along and do a competency profile day or a recruitment day, because there's a box and people kind of think they know what they're going to get from that. So it has been and continues to be a challenge, because since I started 9 years ago, perimenopause has become a huge topic.
Yeah.
It's not that we shouldn't be having the conversation, but I have to be blunt. I don't think the conversation has changed much. In a sense, we've now got perimenopause as the perpetrator of all the ills. And yes, we have lovely people talking about how to solve the problem, but we're still not having enough of a broad conversation about why we've got into this situation, why it seems to be the problem, and why, in fact, perimenopause being as a natural passage has become so gnarly. And it's having that broader context, I think, that I want, because it releases some of this tension that I see. That still, I'm a woman, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Women have these huge things to go through, maybe pregnancy and childbirth, maybe menstruation's horrific, and now we have this, you know, what have we done to deserve it? And also within that, looking for ways to tranquilize the symptoms. Now, I'm absolutely for people having a symptom-free passage as possible, and it is possible.
Yeah.
And if you're in a mess, you don't need to hear me saying, you know, oh, you know, you don't need a pill. You do. You probably do.
Yeah.
The context is still, I'm going to say, a sort of form of internalized misogyny.
Yeah.
Women are somehow always driven into a corner where somebody else has the solution for their problem.
Yeah. And
from that perspective, I want to say, yes, make those choices, but understand the bigger picture of your evolution as a female, and why, as you said earlier, in your early 40s, we start to question and challenge. There's a reason why by midlife, we might feel that we're at a crisis point. You know, it's not some cruel punishment. And if we were prepared better, sooner, maybe the symptoms wouldn't be so harsh. Maybe we'd approach these things as interesting and potentially very exciting gateways for us.
Yeah. And I think when listening to you talk there, it takes me back to when I first became pregnant with my eldest, and I did hypnobirthing, and there were all of these, you know, in learning about that, there was all these conversations about how historically women gave birth at home without, you know, with minimal intervention. I know that maybe stillborns and complications were there at that point, but it's the human body, or the female body, is designed to, in most cases, be able to give birth without any intervention. And in today's society, we intervene very quickly, and everybody talks about pain, and just even that word, as you were saying, like it causes tension everywhere in your body, in your mind, everything, and then that makes delivering a child very, very difficult. And I hear a similar theme in what you're saying about that passage that women go through later in life as well. And if those symptoms were embraced in a maybe in a different way with a different mindset, then it would be very different.
Yeah. I remember as well being pregnant and trying, soldiering on, carrying my own suitcases. I was in business, I got the wide shoulder pads. There's something about all this now as I look back from I'm coming up my 67th birthday, that makes me shake my head in wonder that we're not at the very least aware that amazing things happen through us. And they may be uncomfortable. And yes, of course, we want to prevent loss, and we want to prevent pain, and we want to prevent unnecessary death. But I also feel that in our rush to do this across a much broader range than this topic, but it's very symptomatic, it becomes very fear-based, which, as you say,
Yes.
When that tension increases, when we get very narrow in our thinking, it's like, should I take HRT or not? It's like, there's got to be a solution to this huge problem that's pressing in on me. And we've become so detached, in a sense, from the passages of our life. And, I don't know if you've ever heard of Stephen Jenkinson.
No.
Avoiding them, in making all our effort to avoid them,
I just lost
we
you
rob
there.
ourselves of the ability to relax. And relax doesn't mean you're passive and you do nothing, does it? It means we prepare ourselves as best we can for everything, and then work with what comes.
Yeah.
And I think, you went to hypnobirthing. If women understood perimenopause and its passages, it comes in waves, 42, 44, all building up to this crescendo between 48 and 52. It's like a wave wanting to actually lift us.
Yeah.
Like birth, in a sense.
Yeah.
Perhaps we'd be starting having conversations that weren't all focused around, I'm in a mess right now. What can be done to get me out of this mess? I got to that point myself, by the way. So I know.
So what would perimenopause have been like for women a couple of 100 years ago?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some people say, well, women didn't live that long, so it wasn't an issue. That's a moot point. I think if you go back, and that's because we're quite, in that conversation, we're not looking at the expanse of time that women have been on the planet. I sense that 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, when we were in more matriarchal societies, when the wisdom of elders was not just respected, but it was valued because it was part of the long-term view of the health of the tribe, then, as with all these passages, women would have known what to do. They would have prepared their children and their youngsters to take on roles they no longer had the energy for. And when I say no longer had the energy, that's not like to scare people. It's I have energy for other things now, and lots of it.
Yeah.
They would have known to retire a little bit, to take time out, to reflect, to let go, what berries to eat, what food to nourish themselves with. And there's a whole top, we're so estrogen driven now, just even through the crop spraying, the stuff we put on our skin, the clothes we wear, we're actually imbibing estrogen, which our body's trying to play down.
Yeah.
I suspect that the wise women, the oracles, the doulas, the sexual doulas, the death doulas, would have experienced perimenopause and menopause because it is a death of the old self in the physical living body. And from that, I myself have been able to derive a lot of comfort and knowledge around the process of the physical death and dying, which has been very helpful.
Yeah.
And I've been called to help people in that respect.
Wow.
Because it's an embodiment. It's not a cognitive thing. It's not me sitting here saying, do this and don't do that. It's like the point about being an elder, I think, is that your body, even if you don't know me, can sense there's something here. And again, for me, it's that tribal security. It's like, who's the vision keeper? Who can see the wisdom for the development of this and sustaining of this family group? So that's a long answer. And I think, you know, the debates are very cognitive around, well, perhaps people didn't live that long. Well, perhaps they did some long time ago, because guess what? We're all still here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. It really is such a fascinating topic. And how do you see it evolving then over the next, you know, I don't know, in the short, mid and long term?
Well, what's been encouraging for me is I've seen other, let's call it spiritual teachers. And when I say spiritual, I'll just pause there and say that menopause, pregnancy, childbirth, menarche, they're what I call highly spiritualized passages. In other words, a lot of energy is running through your body, through your system. Spiritual, i.e. non-visible energy, excuse me. And then it settles down, so it's like a wave. And I've noticed at this event I've just spoken to, the real tearfulness of some younger women coming to that, and gratitude that they feel for knowing that they're not sort of being launched into some horrible experience that's just another horrible moment, but they're understanding it through my teaching and other people now coming into a more spiritual way of looking at it, that they're going to pick this up. They're saying to me, we want to tell our friends that it isn't just this horrible thing waiting for us. As you probably had, childbirth, another horrible thing waiting to happen to you.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged that there's a pushback against these very well-meaning, but wholly focused on the fix conversations. And of course we need we need that help, but it's still here's the thing, Claire, it's still keeping us in victim mindset.
Yeah.
Oh, I can help you. You know, I've written a book about HRT. I've done, you know, that you're a victim and I'm the person that can stop that. That's not my conversation. My conversation is, here's the big picture of your life as in a female body. And let's locate where you are and see what needs to be done for you right now. And that might include HRT. And sometimes it does. It might include a number of other things. And then let's take it from there, rather than you're all suffering and we, the establishment, in some way can help you. And they mean well. I'm absolutely not dissing people. But you know, given my age, I'm not seeing a real shift in the conversation.
No.
There's a lot of great talk, but we're still dishing out the same answers. We're just doing it from a more feminine point of view.
Yeah, and I think that sort of talks to the point that society over, and maybe you and I were talking about this last time we spoke, about how society has been very masculine driven, and even women have been masculinized into doing, and we don't know how to simply be. We don't know how to feel life, how to be with our emotions, how to release them, sit with them, and that goes for men as well as women. We seem to have lost the vocabulary to communicate how we feel and what our emotions are.
Yeah, and you've just highlighted something that's really important. As we get to 42 to 44, there's astrological movement, which really pushes us to understand what feelings we do own and to start to, as you say, express them in a healthy, holistic way.
Yeah.
Because they are a power source. You know, they're not just a nice to have or a slightly embarrassing or, you know, delicious thing to share. We are calibrated to different stellar systems, and to feel your emotions, to feel your power.
Yeah.
And to know how to direct that power is the beginning passage of this gateway.
Yeah.
Actually, so it's really cool that you mentioned it, because 42 to 44, that's what we're now being asked to focus on. You know, in those early years up to then, not so much. Be great if we could, but we're building. We're creating the business, the family, the foundation. The next level is right now. Start to own your power and learn how to move it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's definitely a space where I find myself at now, although I'm 48, but I find myself wanting to step into my power and feel it. And that came to me through a dream when I was on my Vipassana retreat, you know, wanting to, that sort of sense that when women come together and they collaborate through love, that great things can happen. And I suppose I'm still working a little bit on how you translate that into something that feels as powerful externally as it does internally.
Yeah, I feel that deeply. And I think the voice is part of it. I think what you're doing is a major contribution, particularly in the Aquarian age, where, you know, the air is the transmitter, and owning our power and being able to use it in ways that serve us as an individual and us as a whole, for me, is the pivotal message of perimenopause. I often liken myself to a tree, you know, that's got to the fruit stage, and I don't want that fruit just to fall on the ground and go rotten. I want to give it. So there's something in there for me. How do I manage being a human? I'm still a human. I still get anger, resentment, jealousy, all of these things, but they're part of an octave of my being. And I always say, you know, we learn through this passage to deliver those lower feelings to the back into the world in a way that's healthy. And I do believe that a lot of the pain and upset, particularly on the psychological level, comes because we've been taught to keep these bottled and pushed down. And as you possibly know, because you've mentioned you've done a Vipassana retreat as well, about this time, as our menstruation slows, our Kundalini can now start to move in a different way. In fact, a gate in the base chakra begins to close. So we've got this power source trying to surge up and make us more aware and more alive.
Yeah.
And yet we get very confused and upset and worried about, women say to me, I got so angry and that just isn't me. And I think, it is, honey. It's just a part of you that hasn't been brought into the light and learned, and you haven't learned to manage it yet. So there's a lot of, that's not me. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
And this again is a separation within the self, which leads us to more confusion and kind of biochemical upset. Because what are emotions but biochemicals that aren't running well, you know, or if they're running in a particular way and we name them in a particular way and we project them in a particular way, we just amplify them. So it's like, we really need to be, as you would say, learning to own that power and manage it.
Yeah. It's really, really, really hard. I mean, I suppose it's like one of those big problems that it feels so big as a problem. How when so many people are living their lives out of awareness and kind of like just going through the motions, and women in particular don't give themselves, they put everybody else first, people pleasing the whole time. Gosh, it just feels like a real uphill battle to wake up all these women and men to all of, you know, all of this. And it's like you sort of alluded to, it's not something you can tell people to do. They've got to feel it viscerally and experience it before they really get it. What are your thoughts on that?
It might sound a little bit like spiritual bypassing. I hope it's not, because like you, I've thought about it endlessly. I mean, right back to when I was 48 and I was still doing business training, and I walked into a room and I thought, I remember looking at everybody and two things. One, I knew everybody's name. I didn't actually, but my brain was trying to tell me, you've done this too often. And two, like, I see 20, 30, maybe 50 people a day. It's not enough. I want to affect millions. Remember that question.
Yeah.
And it got answered eventually, but of course we do. But it's not necessary for us to. What I believe is necessary is that we do what we can within our sphere of influence. Yeah. And I believe that when we detach from the outcome of that, we create something in the quantum. Yeah. We're solidifying a new way of being, a new potential in the quantum. We're crystallizing that. And if we can direct our energy to that, like today's conversation, like the next woman you'll coach and mentor, it's better than losing energy to a problem we cannot solve. And we're not here to do that. We're here to do what we can. Yeah.
And I think the power from that comes from like that sort of ripple effect analogy where you just don't know what the knock-on impact of a small amount of help you can give somebody is on how that multiplies across the world and across different people is really powerful. So I think bringing ourselves back to that can be quite helpful as well.
Yeah, I feel that part of what happens to women, when I look at that, if you like, with psychic perception, that there is a technology by which we're overwhelmed by the pain of the world. And in one sense, we can't feel the pain of the world. We can only feel our own. So I think overwhelm in and of itself is a significant way of understanding that we're tired, that we're leaking energy, that we're trying to fix too many things, and that we need to come back and do where I always start with a client, which is kind of a life review, an inventory, and to learn how to prevent the leakage from our energy system, because ultimately that's what we are. We're beings of energy, and we want tons of it, don't we? We want to feel vital and alive. And I'm excited because I know there's a freestyle coming up on Saturday night, so I'm like, I want to go to this big freestyle, and I don't want to feel that by Saturday I've given away so much there's nothing left for me. And this is symptomatic of a technology that runs in one of our energy bodies, which if we don't clean it up and tighten it up every day, makes us a bit of a source for stray passers-by who might not be able to source their own energy from the cosmos. It happens all the time. And it happens with our children, it happens with our partner, it happens with those closest to us. They unconsciously latch on. It's like you've got a baby on the boob forever. And so there's a teaching, there's some kind of shamanic set of teachings around, the wise older woman isn't surrogating. She's modeling. She might be teaching what she's asked to, but she's not surrogating.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And that becomes a very powerful teaching at midlife, which is how do you still love and care for those you love and care for, but stop giving them that energy that they can necessarily and quite easily take from you without anybody knowing that's happening, because guess what, it's supposedly woo-woo. Well, if you're exhausted after having a conversation with somebody, look me in the eye and tell me, tell me that didn't just happen to you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think I've been personally doing a bit of a clearing out on that side, is that there's again, in my head, I have this visualization that the energy exchange between people over time has to be neutral. And it's fine that it ebbs and flows, and sometimes that you're giving more energy and sometimes you're taking more energy. But as long as it's neutral over time, it's good. But when it's somebody that is constantly taking your energy away, then you have to look after yourself. And if that means that you have to reduce the time you spend with them, then I think that's what you have to do to protect yourself.
I think that's definitely a part of it. I teach systems and methods for making sure that we stay detached. And that does not mean detached from the heart. Far from it. It's detached from the energy centers, which power us up physically, the ones we talked about. I also started writing about, I think this is quite exciting, this came to me, the difference between transactional relationships, which to what I hear is that's what you're describing.
Yes.
And there is a place for them, but I think I identify certain relationships as transactional and I don't stay in them for long.
Yeah.
What I aim for now are transformational relationships where everybody is receiving a little bit more than they started out with. It doesn't come back to zero. It's 1 + 1 = 3. And I'm finding that as I move through my life, I'm drawing more transformational relationships in because that's my intention. I'm not really interested in transactional relationships.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think that's what I'm doing.
I don't think they're nasty people or anything. I just actually know it's actually going to be more of a drain for me overall. The net gain for them. Again, that sounds mean. I just want to balance it up by saying what they get from me, they probably won't like after a time.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I hear you, and I think I feel that's what I'm naturally leaning towards more now as well. And part of that is, I suppose, comes with age. Life's too short. There's only so many hours in the day, and you don't know if the next day is coming. So spend your time with people that fulfill you. And as you say, if you can have that, where you get more energy out of it, the 3 instead of the 2 as an outcome, then why wouldn't you?
That's wise. I love that.
So gosh, we've been talking for over half an hour already, and I know we could carry on talking for quite a while. Maybe we'll have to have a part 2 to this conversation at some point as well. Yeah. Where if I'll put links in the notes that go with this, but if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way of doing that?
Contact page on the old website, which is my name, debsdevries.com. Go straight to my calendar. It's not scary. I won't ring you up. And that's a good place. You won't have me on the phone. It's just a slot in the diary, and we can decide what to do with that. I love that. I have a free to join Facebook group that is called the Midlife Wisdom and Freedom Group. And I love that group because I can do some teaching in there and share some wisdom, and nobody has to buy anything. But if people want to come in and experience some energy work with me, I give my clients, my membership clients, an energy boost every day in something I call the Inner Sanctum. And details of that are on my website.
Sounds amazing.
That's nice. And I do a monthly clearing, energy field clearing, and a monthly mystery school teaching, which people absolutely love that, because I don't know until a week or 2 before the full moon or the new moon, whichever one it's coming through, what we're getting. This month, I've done soul aligned decision making. And that's like a 2-hour class. So I think it just excites me to go, there you go, have that. That's my apple, my barrow of apples for you this month.
Yeah, no, I love it. I will be going and having a detailed look.
Ooh, goody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debs. It's been absolutely lovely to talk to you. A real pleasure. I really enjoyed every moment of it. So thank you.
I'm delighted. And thank you, Claire, for making space for something that I would like to add to the conversation for midlife women. So big thanks to you for the work you're doing. It's amazing.
My absolute pleasure.